Welcome to Something to Talk About from the Bainbridge Island Senior Community Center. Today we're going to be talking with Kathleen Wallace about Indivisible Bainbridge. Indivisible is a nationwide movement that started in 2017. Uh, and we will talk about its origins and what's going on today, speaking up for democracy in our country. Before we get to Kathleen, though, I want to thank Fieldstone Communities of Bainbridge Island, which is a sponsor of Something to Talk About. Fieldstone offers independent living, assisted living, and memory care up on Rolling Bay. And they also have day stay and respite care programs. To learn more, you can go to their website, fieldstonecommunities.com, or you can call, ask for Celia or Jamie at 206-594-1010. Also, we are meeting on the ancestral homeland of the Suquamish people who have lived on the waters of the Salish Sea since time immemorial. And we are grateful for their stewardship, and we are learning from them about how to be good stewards of these lands and waters. Kathleen, I want to thank you very much for taking the time to meet with us today. I appreciate that. I know that you had a big meeting yesterday at the fire station 21, and as you said to me, there are more people who are showing up every day because of their concerns about what's happening to our democracy.
That is absolutely true. I can attest to that.
Now, you
Um,
have been involved for a while. Why don't you tell us a little bit about, in brief, the origins of Indivisible and the context of, what the organization is standing for?
well, the Indivisible Bainbridge Island was formed in 2017. It was formed because two people who were staffers for Congress people put out a guide on how to resist the incoming Trump administration. Um, they have continued to update that guide over the years. Basically, their point of view is that you can help move things in our direction by contacting our representatives. They had been working in Congress as staffers, um, and seeing what the Tea Party movement had done. They'd seen what was effective from the Tea Party movement, and they kind of adapted that kind of stuff for our point of view. Um, Indivisible Bainbridge Island was founded in 2017, and it's had a few changes of leadership. I think the woman who first founded it, and how you establish an indivisible group is you go to the Indivisible website, you find out where the local groups are, and if there is no local group, you can start your own group, or you can find the group that you want to join. So the Indivisible Bainbridge Island group was founded in 2017. A couple of leadership changes. The woman who founded it realized it was going to be bigger than she could do and work a full-time job as well. So we've been doing. I joined Indivisible Bainbridge Island because it was the first one that I found on the map that was close to me. Actually, I live in Suquamish, so anyway. I believe that Derek Kilmer did an event at the Eagle's Nest at the campground, at the fairgrounds. And people were there. There were a bunch of charity groups there, and looking for volunteers to join their charity groups. And so, totally apolitical. I don't remember all the other charity groups, but I saw Holly Brewer sitting at this table, and she looked so sad and lonely. So I said, okay, I was already a member of Bainbridge Island Indivisible, and she needed help. So anyway, we
So
got
you took a
together.
seat and helped out.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Um, so what we did in those early years, we were mostly focused on door knocking for Kim Schreier. Um, We did door knocking for Emily Randall in 2022 when she was running for reelection from LD 26. And now she's our representative in Congress, and we're very happy about that. We've done a lot of postcard writing. And last year, we wrote 19,600 postcards. Our little group, we meet at the TNC, upstairs at the TNC, and write postcards. We focused on California because they had 6 congressional districts that were flippable, that were deemed flippable. And we flipped 4 of them, so we participated in that. One of them was won by 184 votes. So we've certainly been learning. I did not know that it was a possible that something you could do is do ballot chasing. So last year when Dave Up the Grove, it was so close to getting him on the general ballot. So I did some ballot chasing, in-person ballot chasing. And it's also possible to do remote ballot chasing where you call up a voter who did a signature mismatch and try to get that straightened out. So
So
there's
ballot chasing involves what I guess the term that they use is curing a ballot. If there's a
yes, curing,
So
yes.
if there's a ballot that is not being counted because of some question, and
Hmm.
you can help reach out to the voter and say what you should get this rectified.
Yeah, and give them help on how to do it. Like go to this website and get the form and all that stuff. So we've
Well,
done it all, I think.
it seems as though, I mean, we're living in a time where although the shifts in our political world are cataclysmic, it's the shifts are margins, as you say, of hundreds or thousands of votes. It's a
Hmm.
lot of close races, and so it makes a big difference if individuals get involved. It's the opposite of what you often hear, which is my vote won't count. It's like your vote absolutely very much could count.
Yes. I think
So,
postcarding is especially good in special elections that people don't really know that there's an election happening. Though in Wisconsin right now, evidently they're being flooded with TV ads in that race for their Supreme Court. They elect their Supreme Court members,
mhm.
and there's an open seat.
Well, and
So
I'm getting a lot of notices about a couple of special votes in Florida, right?
yes, we've gotten addresses for Florida and are writing them right now. This Wednesday is our last postcard writing meeting. So that's winding down, at least for now.
Okay, and I know that Sheila Kerwin, who's on this call, has been a regular up at TNC to write those postcards. Um, and yesterday you had a meeting at, as I said, Fire Station 21, um, and a number of new folks turned out. Um, one of the questions that I have is so much of the work that you do is by nature reactive. Are there ways, I guess, like postcard writing, where you can feel like you're proactive, like you're doing things ahead of a crisis right now or not?
Well, oh, how to answer that question. We are planning events, but we'll be having a rally on April 5th. But it is all in one way of looking at it, it is all reactive to the Trump administration. Um, we'd like to not be having to do that, but that's the way it is. So we had a meeting yesterday. We've been having a meeting once a month since the election. We are trying to organize around 4 types of activities. One of them is protecting people and working with Kayak to help them out. I don't know if everybody knows what
That's the
kayak
right
is.
Kitsap Immigration Assistance Center.
Yes. So they have on their website, they list some things that they would need help with donations. So we've been gathering, well, I can't say I've been gathering. A wonderful woman named Bridget has been gathering food that people drop off at her house, and then she takes it to Bremerton. And mostly we're talking about dried food, rice and beans and things like that. They also need toiletries like toothpaste and shampoo. And I understand somebody dropped off a big bag of toothpaste at Bridget's house the other day. So that's happening. We have another group called Disrupt and Disobey, and they're the people who are planning rallies and events. But I just kind of think that we need to be doing something at least once a week. So I've gathered a little tiny group of our people, and we're at the intersection of 305 and Winslow every Wednesday from noon until 1:30, waving signs. My personal sign is I heart Canada because I love Canada. On the other side, I've got support Ukraine because I think it's just despicable what's happened with Ukraine. So I think our little intersection group will be growing over time. So yeah.
So you
Oh,
said you said four things. Yeah.
the other one is defending civic institutions. We we blithely find things working well in our community, but we don't know to what extent things are funded by the federal government. Does federal money come to the state and then come to an institution like a school? Or even, I don't know how the senior center is actually funded.
Well, we fortunately are a nonprofit,
Mm-hmm,
locally based. We do get some support from the city of Bainbridge Island, but we do not
mm-hmm,
currently have uh, any funding from the federal government at all.
mm-hmm.
Well, maybe we are. I mean, there's possible grants out there that we might be ancillarily
Yeah.
hoping for, and of course, those things are all up in the air. But
Mhm,
yeah, I think that discovering where those things are. I'm very concerned right now about Meals on Wheels Kitsap, which is a
mhm,
distribution of federal funds. Um,
mhm,
and they do have a program. They come to the center on Thursdays and Fridays. So rooting out what those things are and trying to think about how to keep them alive. Is that when you say
mhm.
defending civic institutions?
Yes. There's a concern about the school district. There's two open positions on the board right now, and I believe in a week or two they're going to be interviewing candidates. We are concerned about Moms for Liberty, trying to get a Moms for Liberty school board member. Moms for Liberty has its biggest chapter in Kitsap County. And I don't know if people are familiar with Moms for Liberty. If you need a quick review, they're a very conservative group that likes to ban books and likes to ban uh, teaching DEI and stuff like that. So we're really concerned. They thought that they had a candidate um, with the last opening uh, on the school board, and that candidate was defeated. So anyway, so we're concerned about that.
Right. So the old phrase, think globally, act locally is sort of the watchword
Hmm.
of your organization, your your
Hmm.
ragtag group of civic duty.
Yeah, yeah. And
So,
then,
yeah, go ahead.
the other category is building electoral power. We're in a lovely blue state, but and everybody in our group, I think, wants in some way to have an effect on what's happening in the swing states. So we're trying to figure that out. Not There's not just a national organization. and not just a grassroots organization of Indivisible. There is a statewide organization as well. And that statewide organization, which is made up of all the indivisible groups here in Washington State, they have an elections group that is studying where it might be best to place effort and energy in some congressional districts in 2026. So they are analyzing that. So,
If someone who is watching or listening or participating here today wanted to get connected to Indivisible, it's pretty easy to do over the internet, right?
yes, we have a website. It is called indivisiblebainbridgeisland.org. And there we have actions you can take right now. For example, call Patty Murray and thank her for what she did about the continuing resolution. Or call Emily Randall and thank her for voting against that continuing resolution. And then after those are listed, there's a link at the bottom that you can click, and it pops up the email form, and you can send me an email if you'd like to get on our newsletter list.
And you send out a newsletter pretty often these days.
Yeah, well, yeah. I try the actual real newsletter is generally comes out on Friday. What I do is try to compile all the events and things that you could be doing in the calendar area. And then after that, I just try to, because the news is coming at us so fast, I try to condense it, the important stuff, condense it and give links to articles. For example, the tariffs. Where are we with the tariffs? Who knows where we are? So in the last newsletter, I tried to put in information like with Canada, it's this. With Mexico, it's this. With China, it's this. Because the news is just so incredible. And I do try to keep up with the legal actions, like what judge did what thing to stop what's been going on. So,
Right. And of course, it's once a week is far not often enough to keep up with the
yeah.
with the and I know we're all reading more than we want to, but we feel as though we have to, and I'm sure you're feeling that way too. So
Hmm.
um strength to you. I want to make sure that if there's somebody here who has a question or comment, they'd like to open up their microphone. And Francis, I'm going to ask you to unmute. And when you unmute, you can ask your question. And I see Bonnie next. So
Okay, am I unmuted now?
yes, yes.
Um, I hate to add to the burden. I mean, it sounds extraordinary. I wish I'd known about it, much sooner. But I definitely will look up the organization and see what I can do to participate. I just want to comment because we are seniors, or most of us, and it's an issue that I think has kind of slipped under the radar in terms of everybody not worrying about it too much. But there's an article in the Seattle Times today, which a reporter interviews a dead person. This
Oh,
person has
yes.
been declared dead by the government, good old Doge, and
Uh-huh.
his Social Security was cut off. The bank was asked by
Hmm.
the federal level, asked to return the uh, January and February payments, and he did not receive his March payment. And
Hmm.
he describes what he had to go through to get this resolved, including ending up at the federal building in Seattle, which is due to be closed, if we can believe what number 47 says right now. And I think we really need to find out as much as we can, because I keep reading these notices that, oh, don't worry about it. Social Security is safe. No elected official is going to touch Social Security. But here we have a prime example
Hmm.
of what they're doing when, you probably recall if you watched Trump's speech. he quoted all these billions of dollars that were going to be saved because they were culling out all these dead people. And here we have a prime example of a dead person who's very much alive, dependent on his Social Security. And I know myself, I would not be able to cover 3 months of Social Security if they took it out of my bank account
Mm-hmm.
and pay and still keep up with all my bills. So I don't know what the next steps are, but I would gladly participate in letter writing or even a protest down at the federal building.
Yes, in the federal building, I think there are protests every Friday at, is it 11?
11:30 to 1:30.
And so that's actually not, for those of us on Bainbridge Island, that's not too far of a walk from the ferry terminal.
No.
Yeah, Ned is not dead, and I saw that Patty Murray actually picked up that story that Danny Westneat put together
Mhm.
and posted it nationally, and it's getting a lot of coverage. Good work by the Seattle Times and Danny.
Well, it's a prime example of read your local newspapers.
And
Yes.
keep them alive. Yes. Bonnie Chen.
I just wanted to make a comment that, Lawrence and I weren't really able to do the going upstairs at the TNC, but we for a long time went and picked up the postcards and wrote them at home. And I think some people maybe need to know that because we wrote lots of postcards.
Yes.
And one of the helpful things is we also bought the stamps for them. So,
Yes.
yeah, which gets
Thank you so much.
yeah. Yeah, but some people can't get up the stairs for,
Well, Holly Brewer was the longtime leader of the group, and she just had to step aside. So we lost access to her front porch.
oh
It was her
dear.
it was her front porch that
Oh
you were
dear.
getting postcards from.
Yeah.
This we're looking for another place that's centrally located
Uh-huh.
that could stand in for Holly's front porch
Okay.
going forward, because I believe I'm positive that we'll be writing for Virginia, probably starting in the summer, because Virginia has off year elections. They
Okay.
elect their legislature and their governor and all that kind of stuff. So I'm pretty sure we'll be writing for Virginia in the summer, and by then we'll have a pickup location
Okay, good.
postcards.
Okay, good. Mhm.
Anybody else have a comment or question about Indivisible Bainbridge Island? Any of you have experience helping out with the protests or the card writing, and you'd like to share what it's been like for you? Karen.
First of all, Kathy has been such a warrior, and I just can't thank you enough. I know every time I email her, I go, thank you for everything you do. She's been amazing. And I was the one like Lawrence and Bonnie. I'd pick them up and bring them home and fill them out and send them back. And that now I feel like we need to do more. So, I was at the meeting yesterday, and I want to be in the streets. I want to be in front of the federal building. I think our visibility is really crucial. So that's where I went. And yesterday at the meeting, wonderful meeting. We called Emily Randall up and the message, and then we all shouted, "Thank you, Emily." So that was kind of a fun phone call to do. So, I just feel like I have to keep fighting. I just don't want to stop and give up. And it'll be, and now I'm kind of looking forward to see where we're going to end up, because it could be very exciting. I'm trying to look positively at this. I mean, I know that's because I've been depressed and I've been angry, and I'm going, okay, there's a column in emotion called excitement. And I am seeing a groundswell, and I hate to use the word, but revolution, and that's where I'm at right now. So, and I'll tell you, it's helped my mental health. So, but Kathy, I can't thank you enough. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome, Karen.
Mhm.
I have heard there is some statistic out there, and I don't know enough about it to really quote it, but there is some level of action in a society that's needed to really make a change. And I think the number for the United States is like 10 million. And it like Karen said, in the street kind of stuff. So we're hoping to get there.
Yeah, and it's a combination. Obviously, there are some there are a lot of lawyers who are working very hard. There are a lot of academics who are recognizing sort of where the pain points are and trying to anticipate where those are. And I feel like an organization like Indivisible has the opportunity to be a funnel for some of those other experts and help those of us who are not experts figure out what our next step might be. So can you
Well,
tell me oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, well, I was just, we have some concerns. We're concerned about Bob Ferguson and the budget shortfall. I've heard something about cutting the Attorney General's budget for filing these lawsuits. I mean, that's definitely a concern. So we need those lawsuits.
And you would think that Governor Ferguson would have some awareness of that, having been in the hot
In that,
seat in 2017 and 18. Yeah.
yeah.
Any other comments or questions? Francis, I'll let you back on. You'll need to unmute again. I'm going to need you to unmute. I'm sorry. There you go.
Talking about a book that one of the senior center board members told me about. It's called On Tyranny, 20 Lessons from the 20th Century. But it's not just lessons, it's suggestions that from those lessons you can learn what to do. Obviously, there's no absolute a solution to what we're facing. It's going to be an ongoing effort for years, I'm afraid, until we can get them out of there. But I do, Kimmy was right. It's a simple, small book, but it has all these references to efforts that did succeed, how they succeeded, and suggestions on what we as individuals or in a group can do.
The book is called On Tyranny.
Depression that I was feeling, and Karen, I understand what you're saying, because I get angry and depressed. And then I read this book and I thought, those people did not just sit around being angry or depressed. They got out and did something. And so it motivated me to think and find things like this. Thank you, Reese, for all the something to talk about programs, which are enlightening, but this one especially. Thank you, Kathleen.
Well, thank
Yeah,
you, Francis.
The book is called On Tyranny. It's by Timothy Snyder. And yeah, I think that it's a very slight volume, but packed with information and guidance.
You could put it in your coat pocket with your pocket constitution. It is a small book, and our book group read it and discussed it about 2 months ago. It's a good read. I recommend it. I'll lend it out to anybody if it wants it too.
And Bonnie has another comment. You'll need to unmute, please.
I was just pointing that, Karen, yes, I'd like to get the little book.
Yeah, I think that that's a book that we can maybe discuss at a future, something to talk about. I'll have a little book group here. Tom, I see you unmuted.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I just want to make a comment. The Republicans have been organizing for years. They didn't just start with Trump. They've been getting people on, boards like the public utility district type boards, school boards, uh, anything like that. They've been doing that. They've been getting the levers in the system that they can work to their advantage, and they're very successful at it. I just sometimes I've been involved in politics and run for office,
Mhm.
and I think that what I've sort of come to the conclusion that most of the Democrats work, whereas there's a lot of Republicans that are either retired or independently wealthy, so they have the time and the money to get in, more involved than many of the Democrats do. You're busy making a living, and I think that's one reason that they're successful. But I think I really commend what you're doing. It's exactly what has to be done. You have to establish, some kind of a movement where they look at the numbers and say, "Oh, we're in trouble." And I don't know, as you pointed out, I don't know what that number is, but you have to get there. And
Mhm.
I think one of the ways is by, winning elections. But, right now that's slow and it's hard and you're fighting money.
Mhm.
You see somebody like Musk come on and give that kind of cash. It's hard. Money doesn't win elections, but it helps a lot. I mean, in place of money, organization and individual effort and door knocking and that sort of thing works. But you know, we're always going to be fighting money. Anyway,
And that's
I-
I'm guessing that is part of the rationale behind the person to person contact of postcards, is that you're actually having an individual contact, if you will. It's kind of a remote doorbelling. It's probably not as effective, but on the other hand, we're increasingly inured, I think, to advertising alone. And
Yes.
so
And
maybe
phone calls. I've talked to so many people who are so discouraged about phone calling. Um, so I think the postcards are good in situations where there's an election that nobody really knows much about, nobody really knows it's happening. So they get a card in the mail and it says, you got an election, it's on this day, and you can vote early starting on this day. And at least they have some information in their hands.
and I'm imagining that because of the growth of things like the indivisible local movements, like Indivisible Bainbridge Island,
Mhm.
more awareness of the kinds of things that Tom was talking about, individual commissions or boards. Gail, did you have a comment?
Yes, I have more of a question. Given all of the issues that face us currently, uh, how does Indivisible decide what they're going to do and on which issue?
Well, locally, when I write my own action items based on what's happening. So I've got action items regarding the continuing resolution that they just voted on. Um, I get to make the decision. I don't know what else to say. But Indivisible National, for example, just the other day did a did a vote of group leaders on what to do about Chuck Schumer. Um, and the decision was to ask Chuck Schumer to step aside and we can get some new leadership in the Senate. So that's kind of an example of a big decision being made.
I'm showing to those of you on YouTube or on the stream um, the screenshot of Indivisible BI, their website,
Mhm.
and you can see that
Oh,
Kathy has a list of things here that she's suggesting you do,
okay.
and some of those are coming as I guess you said, Kathleen, out of your own awareness, and some of them
Uh-huh.
may be things that are being shared from um, the
And then,
Indivisible National.
oh, and that reminds me, um, one of the things that's on that list is about the SAVE Act. I don't know if you guys are really familiar with the SAVE Act, but it's a terrible piece of legislation that the GOP has put forward in Congress. It would require you to have a passport or a birth certificate, and not just, one of those things that I had, that the hospital handed out when you were born, but actually you have to have a passport or an official state birth certificate in order to vote. They passed that bill last year and it died in the Senate because the Senate was then controlled by the Democrats. But I'm sure they're going to try and pass it again, and it is truly terrifying, especially for women. Women who've changed their name, have adopted their husband's last name, and they don't have a passport, and their birth certificate is going to be in their maiden name. It's just a nightmare of what could happen with this bill.
Yeah.
So I
Kathy,
just
I'm
wanted
in
to
the
mention
process.
that.
Yeah, I'm in the process of changing my name back to my maiden name.
Oh, really? Yeah.
So because I wanted yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm jumping, I've been to the Social Security office already. And now I'll get that changed, and then I'll get my driver's license changed. So yeah, they're doing
Yeah.
everything to suppress votes. Everything. It's disgusting.
Well, what went on in Georgia last year? The Secretary of State that everybody admires, Brad Raffensperger, put up a website where if you wanted to challenge somebody's ability to vote, you could just put in their name and click submit, and a challenge would go to the Secretary of State's office. They would maybe mail a postcard to that person and say your registration has been challenged. But they did it close enough to the election that people didn't have time to respond to the postcard if they even found that they've gotten a postcard. So Georgia is really a problem, to say the least.
Yes, and states look at each other to see what they're doing, and if something gets enacted one place, you might suddenly see it in 3 other states. So this is
Well,
yeah, this is go ahead.
well, just back to that Georgia problem. I think there's one woman who challenged 30,000 voters, and then another guy who challenged another couple, 20,000 voters. I mean, it's just insane what they're doing. So anyway, that's it for me on that.
Yeah, well, I do think I mean, I do point out that indivisiblebainbridgeisland.org, and as as you said, Kathy, the engagement has been growing. You had 80 folks yesterday,
Mhm.
and you can participate and get a word in sort of by just getting on the mailing list of Indivisible Bainbridge Island. And to go over that, they're looking at uh, protecting people, at disrupt and disobey, which are things like protesting, getting out on the street, um, defending civil institutions, which are things like standing by the federal building, and building electoral power, which I guess to say more about that might be interesting. Like move to
Ah.
amend, that kind of thing.
Well, basically, I mean, we all realize that there's these swing states and we live in a lovely blue state. And how do we affect changes how do we get people in these swing states to vote for Democrats? Basically, that's it. So that's what we're looking at. It's not something that can be done right away, but certainly the research can be done now. I mean, the 6 congressional districts in California were researched and figured out, and we flipped 4 of them. So that's good. That's stuff we need to keep doing.
Yeah, and it seems as though to some degree the divisions in our country are not necessarily along those traditional ideas of what's a Republican and what's a Democrat. We're learning that, um, there was a very strong component of Democrats who were in favor of not allowing the continuing resolution to go forward in the
Mhm.
Senate, and yet a small band of Democrats, led by Chuck Schumer,
Mhm.
decided to move ahead with the continuing resolution vote. And so you end up, there are now some articles about the idea of it's really about younger voters, or as Jamel Bowie said, I think it's the difference between fight and fear.
Yeah.
And so are you going to, are you brave enough to confront a organization that a institution of government that is threatening you, or not? Are you fearful of what they might be able to do to you?
Yeah. That's a good way of looking at it.
Well, I want to thank you for taking the time. I know you're very busy, and I appreciate the time that you're giving to us to get this word out. So
Well, thank you.
you're welcome. It's been a very informative and interesting conversation to me, and
Well,
stay in touch with us if you're interested. We're happy to share things through the Senior Community Center.